Hey guys, Coach Mike here, and I want to wish you all a very healthy and happy new year, as well as alert you to a brand new feature that we have here on the website for 2013, and it's called the Base Tip of the Week. Now, unlike the exercise of the week that used to run in this section of the website, the tip of the week is going to be a little bit different in that it will be a lot more all-encompassing. In addition to various ways to tweak certain exercises, stretches, and foam rolls, I'm also going to be giving you lots of information here on nutrition, hydration, postural tips, speed and agility drills, you name it. So it's definitely going to be something that you want to come back and check each week so that you can start incorporating these tips into your training, into your nutritional approach. And we're going to kick things off with a great way to stretch the hamstrings. Now, tight hamstrings are definitely an obstacle that I run into with young athletes quite frequently. The problem is you don't want to do static stretching for your hamstrings pre-workout, and you also don't want to do it with younger groups because they're going through those growth spurts and they tend to have very tight muscles and connective tissue, so throwing more prolonged tension on them with static stretches is definitely not the way to go. But I'm going to show you a great way to stretch them here with something called active isolated stretching, and like I said, it's fantastic both pre-workout, you can also do it after workouts, but it's great for that younger set that needs to improve flexibility without subjecting them to static stretching. So let's go ahead and take a look at that active isolated hamstring stretch right now. Alright, so in order to do the active isolated hamstring stretch, you're either going to need a rubber resistance band like I have here or a stretch strap. Now if you're using a band, you're going to want to make sure that you loop it around the foot so that the band doesn't slip off and hit you. Going into a stretch position like this, it could easily slip off your foot, so what you're going to do here is just loop it around to make sure that it stays in place. Now in a second I'm going to lie back and we're going to go into the stretch, but the thing that I really want to focus on here, I'm not just going to pull on the band to bring myself into a passive stretch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the muscles on the front of my thigh and the front of my hip on my left leg to actively bring myself into the stretch, and then once I get in a position where I do feel a bit of a pull in the back of the hamstring, I'm just going to gently use the band to give me about 5 to 10% more, and I'm only going to hold that for a couple of seconds and then release, and we'll do a series of repetitions that way. So we'll begin by lying back. Now let's pay attention to the side that I'm not stretching here, the right side. What you want to do with this leg is when the stretch begins, we don't want to have this right hip and this right leg kind of bending up and popping up into the air, which can happen if you had tight hips. So I want you to focus on driving your heel down and away from you. So this will activate the glute on the right side and actually start to stretch the hip flexor here a bit. So now here with no tension on the band, I'm going to use the muscles on the front of my thigh, lift up into that stretch, and where I start to feel a little stretch, I'm going to use the band and go about 5 to 10% more for 2 seconds and then release the whole thing. Once again, actively use the muscles on the front of that thigh, another 5 to 10% with the band, and release the whole thing. And what we're doing here by stretching this way, we're avoiding that static stretch where the muscles are going to tense up as a protective mechanism, and we're helping to not only improve flexibility, but we're helping young athletes to get a sense of their bodies by using those opposing muscle groups. We're activating the central nervous system while we're increasing range of motion, and it's a really effective way to stretch. Now we do about 8 to 10 reps of this, and because the hamstring is a muscle group that has a couple of different heads, it's also important to turn your foot in different directions. So we can turn the toes out, come back, once again 2-second pull, and we'll get a little bit different feel on the stretch that way. Remember, it's just a really gentle pull on this band and firing through the right leg the whole time. And then we also want to make sure to turn the toes in a bit as well. Once again, not forcing anything. And you may notice that you get a little different feel and a little different distance on each stretch when you turn the toes in different directions. So that's why it's important to do it in all directions. Alright, so that does it for our first tip of the week for 2013. But make sure to check back next week because I'll be giving you some great nutritional tips for healthy snacks on the go. I'll see you next week.